All right, everyone. We're here. I apologize for my tardiness, but I assure you it will all be worth it. On tonight's agenda, I'm going to be teaching you how to make billions with a B. That's a lot of money. I don't think you've ever fully grasped the weight of billions of dollars. So, if you're someone who's down on their luck, facing the turmoils of the economic state of the world we find ourselves in, tune in, pay close attention. I'm going to teach you how you can turn your life around. I have a lot in store today. I have a lot to talk about. I'm really excited for what I have to share with all of my friends, followers, investors. And I think this message is very powerful. It's one that needs to be heard, and it's one that should be taken very seriously. I know in the last couple of years, there have been many, many financial scams. This is not one of them. Absolutely not. This is a very real opportunity for a lot of good people to make good money while also enriching the lives of those within their communities. So, without further ado, tonight we'll be talking about my plans for the franchise revival of Paul. Now, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Paul. Paul is a very critically acclaimed film released in 2011. And if you haven't seen Paul yet, I urge you to take a moment, find Paul, whether it's on physical media, at your local library, a red box near you, or on a streaming platform. Find Paul, watch the movie again. Then one more time for your better understanding of Paul, not only as a film, but as commentary of our world as it was in 2011. Paul is such a simple movie with a lot to say. And even though it was critically acclaimed and universally appraised for its breaking of conventions and pushing the boundaries of cinema, I still feel as though it didn't quite get what it deserved, which was a full media franchise. I think Paul had every reason to get a sequel and another sequel and many more sequels. But I think the absence of Paul for the last 14 years has ultimately been good. For Paul, not necessarily for society, but this gives Paul a great opportunity to return. The world needs Paul now more than ever. The impact Paul made on all of our lives. Yes, all of our lives, whether you saw the movie or not, he made an impact on everyone. The ripple effect of Paul is something that has yet to be studied, and I'm sure it will be a heated discussion within the scientific community after what I have for you today. So, for tonight's agenda, we're going to start with the idea. What is all of this about? Then we're going to talk about the credentials of the genius behind the idea. We're going to talk about why I am qualified to be giving this franchise revival pitch, why I'm qualified to lead the charge on this, and what makes me unique compared to other possible filmmakers in this industry. And then we're going to talk about the why. Why now? Why does the world need Paul now more than ever? And then we're going to get into the good stuff. We are going to discuss my 5-movie idea for the franchise revival of Paul. It's going to span Paul's 2 through 6. And you're going to see why Paul needs 5 follow-up films to properly tie up the narrative thread that was left open after the first Paul movie. And by the end of it, you will be shaken to your core. You will feel the impact of what the potential of this Paul franchise is before it even comes out. So for those of you that are here with me today, you're in for a very exciting time because you are among the first to feel the power of Paul before he makes his big comeback. Before Paul becomes the household name once more and dominate the mind space of all people around the globe. Then we're going to follow up with the how. How are we going to make this happen? What steps are needed to ensure the success of Paul? And that will be outlined in our next steps slide. So, I don't think any of you are ready. When these ideas first came to me, it hurt. It hurt me. Not because they were bad or generally painful ideas. It was just the weight, the sheer weight of these ideas were more than even my genius mind could handle. It was too much for me. But I stood up. I did some mental exercises. I strengthened my mind, and I am now carrying the burden for all of you. The burden of this genius idea to bring Paul back. And I'm happy that I can let all of you into my mind now to help me carry the weight of this immensely powerful idea that will change the world. So let's begin by talking about the idea. The original Paul left a lot unsaid. And the current state of the world gives Paul a perfect backdrop to return to. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that backdrop. All of us live in the same world. We're aware of the things happening and why it makes sense for Paul to return now. If a Paul sequel came out in 2012, 2013, 2018, even 2020, it wouldn't have been as powerful as it would be today. The world has changed a lot in the last 14 years, to say the least. Some of us believe that it's grown, it's evolved, it's gotten better. Some of us believe the opposite to be true, that things have only gotten worse, that society is at an all-time low, that things have never been as bad as they are now. And this division is exactly the backdrop Paul will thrive on. You will see when I get to the pitch for the movies what I mean by this. How Paul is going to tackle some of the serious and dire issues of our world today. How Paul is going to give us the answers we need to these burning questions of how can we solve global challenges? What are we capable of doing when we put our minds together? Paul is the glue that will bring all the people in this world together on a united front to help one another. I believe a revival of the Paul franchise with 5, count them, 5 new entries would shake the world to its core and really remind people what's most important in life. It brings me great joy to be discussing this with you today. I pause because I'm not ready to share this with the world. I've been carrying this with me for so long. I don't know what it will feel like to finally relieve this weight on my shoulders and share it with the world. It's that powerful of a message. But I'm going to face my fear as Paul has taught me to do so. So, why am I the right person for this? Let's talk about the genius behind the idea. I spent many of my early years believing Paul to be real. I thought Paul was among us in flesh and blood. I thought this was a man that had this incredible journey on the planet Earth and left us for a new one. And I eagerly awaited his return for many years. But reality set in as I grew older. It crushed my spirit, and it tried to crush my mind. But I realized the only way to bring Paul back was to do it myself. So, I did what anyone do to bring Paul back. I climbed the ladder in the film industry. I worked hard for many years. I studied film. I learned all about the media form, its history, the trials and tribulations of filmmaking, what a good movie really is. And I put all of that to the test by creating my own movies. Movies such as, and also, which you may have heard of due to them both winning Academy Awards. And I'm well known for the visual masterpieces that I create that not only captivate, but move audiences. Takes the audience from point A in their lives to point B. I've also helped many actors truly find their passion, find their skill, their talent, and find emotions within them that they didn't know existed. I really help them come into their own as actors and show them what is possible within themselves. And many of these actors have gone on to win Oscar nominations from being a part of my films, as well as using that knowledge in other films. Many believe that it is a privilege to work with me And I don't know if I would say all that, but the privilege lies with me when I get to work with other creative minds to bring these wonderful ideas to life. Now, I see we have followers joining the discussion. I apologize. I did not have chat pulled up. You can't hear my mic? Okay. You concern me. I said a lot of words. I said a lot of great words. I hope you're listening. Drex, pay attention. This is for you. So, I truly believe that I am someone that was imbued with the spirit of Paul. And therefore, I am, frankly, the only person in this industry that has the qualifications to bring Paul back, to make sure that he is treated with the respect that he deserves, that he is accurate to his source material, that he continues to stand for the ideals that he always stood for throughout the entire runtime of the 2011 movie. I shudder at the thought that someone else might helm a future Paul sequel and simply use it as a cash grab. My idea today will make billions. But know this, I do not do it for the money. I do it for the idea of Paul. To me, he is real. He lives in my heart. And you need to see the big picture. This isn't about the money. This isn't about entertaining the audience. This is about global conflict resolution, bringing about world peace through the media of filmmaking. That is what movies have always been about. Images say 1,000 words. So when you put 24 images together in a second, that is 24,000 words. And if you count the seconds in the original Paul film, that's more words than most people will ever say in their lifetime. Think about how much 5 more Paul movies have to say. I want you to think about that. I want that to be a thought in your head as we progress through this pitch. So why now? Why is now the time for Paul to make his big comeback? Well, trends have shown that the watch time for the original Paul is at an all-time high across streaming platforms. People are seeking the message that Paul brought to our world in 2011 in the big 2.5. Think about that. That's amazing. People are still resonating with the message of the original Paul. They might not have ever watched the original Paul when it came out, but they feel drawn to him. They feel the need to seek him out, to find him on the streaming platform and watch the movie, to hear his message, to hear the thousands, millions, billions, trillions of words that he is speaking every single frame. And as you can see by this graph, that number continues to go up. There was a brief dip when the world was lost. And people forgot the message of Paul. People forgot what it was all about. But that is exactly why they need to remember now more than ever. People have generally shown an ever-rising interest in Paul-related media since 2018. Searches for Paul sequel have never been higher. They have never been higher. You can look it up. You can look up Paul sequel and look at the search trends, and you will see that they have never, ever been higher than this year. Paul DVD sales have also increased. In an era of streaming, people find it so important to keep Paul physically stored forever in their vaults so that in the event of the apocalypse, in the event that Netflix shuts their servers down, Amazon Prime shuts their servers down, Peacock shuts their service down, they will always have a physical copy of the message that Paul wants to share. It's powerful, and it's inspiring to think that there are so many people in this world who are ready to hear Paul's voice again. So, let's discuss the Paul films. We start with Paul 2, otherwise known as, Hey, it's Paul again. And it follows Paul as he returns to Earth, longing for weed. As we know, Paul in the first film smoked a lot of weed. It only makes sense that during his journeys, he won't find weed anywhere else than the planet Earth. Humbly, that is the one thing that we have that the universe doesn't. Of course, he will naturally run into his friends once more, played by Nick Frost and Simon Pegg, and the three go on an adventure for the best weed that money can buy. They want to celebrate Paul's return by showing him what Earth has to offer at its best. There are only two people on this planet that truly know where to find such weed. And that would be none other than Dale and Saul from the hit film Pineapple Express. Now, I'm sure many of you have seen Pineapple Express. You know what the movie's about. You know how Dale and Saul's story end. And you know that there's always been a clamoring for a Pineapple Express sequel. I think now is the best time to bring James Franco and Seth Rogen back for this pseudo sequel to Pineapple Express, wrapped nicely into the sequel to Paul. It fits the themes of both films. It makes sense within the universe. It's not a shoe-in. We're not just making cameos and crossovers for the sake of making cameos and crossovers. We're doing this because it makes sense narratively. The big three need Dale and Saul's help to find the best weed to celebrate Paul's return. And you can see how this is a movie that bridges worlds together, that brings people together in search of something greater. A truly powerful message under the guise of a family-friendly alien comedy. I mean, it's a movie that appeals to all ages. It's a movie that has international appeal. It's a movie with a relatable premise. And its core message of friendship, union, the search for something bigger than yourself. I strongly believe will resonate with the audience of this film. And it will remind people what Paul is all about. However, as all things in the world, it must come to an end. And ultimately, the movie ends with the Earth blowing up. And the big three have to escape the planet and go to Paul's homeworld. It's a shocking revelation. It's an escalation that many will say is absurd and out of nowhere. But take a step back. Take off those rose-tinted glasses and look around. Really look at society with a critical eye. Do you believe that everyday things happen out of nowhere? Do you think the things that you hear about in our society are absurd escalations? No. You think, of course, this is where things are now. Of course, I can't buy a pack of Haribo gummy bears without selling an arm and a leg. Of course, Mario Kart World costs $80. Of course. All of this just makes sense, right? No. You've been conditioned to believe that these massive escalations in the real world are normal. And as such, we are forcing the audience to confront a similar level of escalation. The movie completely changes tone out of nowhere. But it mimics reality. It mimics the everyday escalation of issues. And we are once again going to need Paul to remind us that this is not normal and that we must find a way to solve these issues, to reduce this escalation, and to bring ourselves back to a reasonable and just reality. My friends, that's what Hey, It's Paul Again is all about. That is the core message of this movie, to bring people together, to remind us that these escalations we see every day are not reasonable, that we must accept the absurdness of our reality and challenge it. And that will directly lead into Paul 3. It's Paul over. This follows directly after the destruction of Earth and Hey, It's Paul Again. It's Paul Over is a gut-wrenching film. It saddens me to think that this is a film where we're going to see Paul at his lowest. But seeing the humanity in Paul, an alien, is the reminder that we all need that it's okay to be vulnerable. And it's okay to rely on your friends for help. And it's okay that bad things have happened and that it's about how you move on from it, how you progress your life from it. It's Paul Over is a movie about heart, about courage, about standing up for what you believe in. When the big three return to Paul's homeworld, they find that Paul's twin brother has taken over the planet, and he is searching for Paul to execute him. The mental stress this puts on Paul is immense. And the man that we thought was an unbreakable force is broken. We see that Paul is just like any of us, that there is a limit to what he can take. But what Paul recognizes is that he has friends. He has people he can rely on, even when people close to him, people very close to him, such as his twin brother, betray him. He still has a circle of strong people to rely on. The big three are now on the run from the tyrannical forces of the new government on Paul's homeworld, run by his twin brother. And they are actively searching for not just a way to clear Paul's name, but to understand what's happening. They're not just concerned with finding a solution. They want to learn. They want to grow. It doesn't help anyone to bring a solution to a problem that you don't fully understand. This is another powerful message that I think we need to hear today. People are constantly trying to solve problems without empathizing with the problem. Why did we get here? How? What caused this? What is the root cause of the problem? And what is the root cause of the root cause? We need to dive deep into our problems to truly understand what the correct solution is, if there even is a correct solution. At times, there might be multiple correct solutions, none of which are obvious, all of which may require a sacrifice of some kind. In this movie, the big three seek to understand Paul's twin brother, who is the leader of this new tyrannical government on Paul's homeworld, and learn why it is that he's doing what he's doing. They come to find out that it's nothing that deep. Paul's twin brother is simply afraid of Paul. It's such a human vulnerability to be afraid of someone else, to think that you are inferior to them, and to be overtaken by rage, by vengeance, pride, ego. Paul knows his twin brother's big secret. And Paul's twin brother only seeks to remove all traces of his own vulnerability. This is a movie highlighting the strength of being vulnerable versus the weakness of hiding your vulnerability. Again, this is a film with a powerful message. This is a film that once again hides itself as a family-friendly comedy, but ultimately imparts these powerful, lifelong lessons into the audience. We are hiding this beautiful moral compass within this film to directly deliver it to the audience. This movie might be too highbrow for me. And that is exactly the point. That is exactly the point I'm trying to make. This is a film that is going to test the audience's knowledge and cinematic comprehension. And my goal with these movies is to teach you these lessons through this medium. Even though it might seem highbrow on the surface. Right now, the idea is so simple. The message is so clear. The message is so human. that if I do my job as a filmmaker correctly, you will understand. Cinema that is highbrow and seen as pretentious to enjoy is because the filmmaker is not able to convey that message simply. A good message should be understood by all. And that is the point of these films. These films are hiding this powerful message inside of this little alien boy. I know how to do my job as a filmmaker. I'm not thrashing other filmmakers, but what I am saying is that if you cannot understand the message of the film, do not blame yourself. Do not blame yourself. The point of a film is to convey to you a message clearly. That is the point of any conversation. If you cannot understand what someone is saying to you, whether it be through words, through images, through moving images, through a program, do not blame yourself. It is not your fault. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the fault of the speaker. Because speaking is hard. Speaking is difficult. We as human beings have been fighting to find a way to speak for eons. All we have ever done as humans is find a way to convey what's in here, out there. And we have invented all of these beautiful forms of conversation, such as literature, artwork, films, video games, even cooking. These are all conversations a speaker is having with an audience. And my purpose with this film is to make this conversation as digestible as humanly possible, to make the message clear and concise so that you walk out of that theater, you dump your half-eaten extra large popcorn into the trash thinking, I want to be a better person. That is the point of this film, and that is my duty as a filmmaker. The important part of this film, though, is how it ends. Paul's homeworld will also blow up, and he will accept his fate, as will his friends. They will all embrace each other in their final moments. They've accepted that they are vulnerable, that they might be powerless at times. But no matter what, they will always have each other. And once again, the audience is left needing to challenge this escalation. We follow up in a way that will most likely be seen as confusing. We follow up with Better Call Paul. Better Call Paul is a parody of the hit TV show Better Call Saul, which itself is a spin-off of the other hit TV show Breaking Bad. This movie will follow Paul, a down-on-his-luck lawyer, as he rises through the ranks using questionable means, sacrificing his moral compass. And losing sight of who he really is. This is a film that will challenge your idea of Paul. It will paint Paul in a completely different light, opposite to what you have experienced in the previous 3 films. You will think that Paul is a wonderful, upstanding, morally righteous little alien boy. And this movie will make you watch him throw all of that away. Paul will be at his lowest. You will see Paul at his most human. Paul will sacrifice his ideals, his friends, his family, all for the sake of fame, fortune, for the sake of these abstract ideas society has told him that he should pursue. It's a movie that makes you think, what was the point of the other 3 Paul movies if he's just going to become this washed up, horrible guy? And that's the point. The point is to show you that at any point, anyone can change, anyone can lose themselves, anyone can become the very monster they sought to destroy. But that doesn't mean they're not human, that they can't come back. The point of this story is to paint a completely opposite picture of Paul and once again show you that that is a part of his vulnerability. This movie will not make reference to the other Paul movies. This movie will not contain Nick Frost or Simon Pegg or any other characters from the previous Paul films. This will be a standalone film that watches Paul truly deteriorate. And in turn, the audience will feel their hearts sink as the movie progresses. And in the end, Paul is shot dead, waking up in heaven. This movie takes place after it's Paul over. And it is revealed that this is simply a vision presented to him by God, whom he has previously stated to not believe in. The point of this film is not to make a religious statement, but it will lead into a philosophical discussion between an entity higher than Paul, a non-human entity, an entity that doesn't understand the everyday struggles of being just a little alien boy. Versus the ideas of what it means to be human. This will be a movie that most will probably call the low point of this franchise. Frankly, I'm not disheartened by that. Frankly, this entire set of movies will be of such high quality to say that Paul 4 is the worst of the 6 still puts it above most other films. This is a movie that once again has the audience challenging their preconceived notions and encourage them to think critically about themselves and the world around them. And this will really get tested in Paul 5. It's Paul in your head. In this movie, Paul has a philosophical discussion with God on how the new universe should be created. He contends with this omnipotent being that cannot grasp the simplicity of what it means to be human, who cannot grasp the need for the smaller things, because he is concerned with the bigger picture, how all of the pieces fit together and craft a beautiful work of art. Paul combats this notion by saying, not everything needs to fit together. Not everything needs to become a cohesive, big picture idea. That it's okay that some things don't make sense. That some things don't fit together. That's distinctly the human experience. Because when things don't make sense, we seek meaning. We engage with these things to find how they make sense. That is the human experience. That is what all of us are doing with our everyday lives. That is the beauty of being a human in this world. Understanding and empathizing with things that you don't understand is what Paul is fighting for. This movie is not to make a religious statement, nor is it meant to offend any religion. It is simply a way to put Paul into this philosophical drama in which he can contend with someone else that does not understand his small picture view. Ultimately, Paul fights for the universe to be recreated exactly the same. He sees the beauty in the world that once was, and he believes that it should be given a second chance. This will lead to the final film. I know that we've spent quite some time going over these Paul sequels. I can feel the weight lifting off of my shoulders as I present to you these films, these masterpieces. If you're not ready for what will be the final Paul film, step back, take a deep breath. It will all be okay. Even though it will be the final Paul film, Paul will not leave us. Paul will always be in our hearts and in our minds. And the point I'm trying to make with these movies is that Paul is an idea that will never die. This is a film that will neatly tie up all of the Paul movies. And it will remind us truly what it means to be human. The plot reminds me of SMT. I was a big fan of the Shin Megami Tensei franchise. I can't help but admit there may be a few points within this franchise of films where I have taken inspiration from Shin Megami Tensei. There's nothing to be afraid of. I promise you, the world will be better for what I'm about to show you. Paul 6 will be titled Paul 2. And this film will recreate the events exactly as they were in Paul 1 from 2011. The only difference will be that Paul wears a tank top, and there will be a point in the film where he recognizes that he feels like he's done this before. The scene where they're all smoking around the campfire, that overwhelming feeling of deja vu will hit him. And he'll shrug it off. And the rest of the film progresses exactly as it did in Paul 2011. This will be the send-off for Paul permanently. We are closing the door for any future Paul installment in this film franchise. The fact that this loops right back to the beginning is the pinnacle of the human experience. It reminds us that it's okay to end up back where we started. Just because we're back at the starting line doesn't mean that we've changed. Every runner always comes back to that starting line. After the journey of training, they always come back and do it again. And that's what this movie is about. To remind us to take the journey that we've just experienced, the lessons that we've learned, and to start again. To go back to the beginning and show off what we've learned. Sometimes it is about nothing ever happening. It's about the fact that nothing has to happen for everything to happen. A series of major events does not mean that anything has changed. But what's changed is changed in here and in here. Take what you've learned. Take all the time you've spent with Paul and bring it right back where we started. And look at Paul through his eyes. We've spent so much time with Paul, I promise you, Paul 2 will not feel like the same movie. It will almost trick you into thinking you are watching a new film. But you're not. You have grown. You have evolved. You have learned the lessons that I have been trying to impart upon you through the Paul sequels. I fully anticipate reviews of this film to praise it for its originality, for how unique it is, and how it's a wonderful send-off to Paul. And that will prove to me that you understood the film, all of the films, that you understood what Paul stood for. I can feel this weight leaving my shoulders. This burden that I've been carrying, I don't carry alone anymore. Paul is within all of us. And the irony of a little alien boy being the most human is what will show us what we need to strive to be. Now, let's get back to the how. With a measly $4 billion US in funding, we can make all of these movies a reality. $4 billion. That's all it takes. Compared to the rising prices of film development, $4 billion for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 movies is a small ask. And as I outlined on the genius behind the idea slide, I am someone with a proven track record. And with an additional $500 million in marketing, we can spread the word of Paul to more and more people. We can make sure that Paul's voice is heard around the world. The results will be astronomical. Investors, listen closely. The results will be astronomical. We are anticipating $120 billion in returns from the Paul franchise over the course of the next 50 years. That's right. Paul will be a franchise that goes on for at least 50 years, but I fully, personally anticipate it to go on for the rest of time until the heat death of this universe. Paul will be in every human being born after this day's heart and soul and mind. Paul will never rest for as long as humanity is alive, for as long as the human spirit is alive. I have a personal team of industry analysts who research market trends and other such things, and they came up with these figures. Now, they only can predict up to 50 years in the future. I'm assuming because they will likely only be alive for another 50 or so years. It makes sense not to predict things beyond your lifespan. It's not their fault. But as a visionary, I see beyond my lifespan. I'm thinking about how Paul will impact humanity for eons. Paul is beyond me as a one person. Paul is beyond all of us living persons on this planet today. Paul is greater than any of us can imagine. And that's why I find it so important to bring him back, to spread this powerful message with all of humanity in cinema form. So, how can we make this happen? deposit the funds into my account, and watch the magic happen. I've outlined my plan, my credentials, and what the results will be. If you do not see how important it is to make this happen, I feel sorry for you. I really do. Do not lose hope. Do not lose hope. You may be in a position where you have been forced to become cynical, where you've been convinced that this idea is so outlandish that you should laugh it off. Do not be so cynical. Do not lose that hope. We can make this happen. Deposit the funds into my account, and you and I can change the world. This is an idea that goes beyond just Netflix, goes beyond just Amazon Prime or Pluto. This is an idea that must be shared with as many people as possible. I am not interested in fighting for film rights, for film distribution contracts. I want this movie in theaters, on DVD, on Blu-ray, on all streaming platforms. I want this movie to be readily available to everyone. I want to fund people who don't have access to films to get access to films so they can watch this movie, all of these movies. I want people to hear Paul. And if this inspires more people to spread the wonderful message of Paul, then I've done my job right. You can support it by depositing the funds into my account. Whatever funds you are able to deposit. $4 billion is a lot for any one individual person, but remember that Paul is beyond any of us individually. He is even beyond all of us together because he spans time and space. But deposit the funds into my account and you will see the magic happen. Paul is unlike any other. He's someone I truly believe in. And I truly believe in myself to bring his message to the world. He inspires me every day to be a better person. He inspires me to act with compassion, with empathy, with kindness. And it reminds me that I should always look to the people around me and rely on them for help. It's the message of the movies, as I've outlined. So I'm seeking your help. Investors, film production companies, those interested in film, deposit the funds into my account and watch the magic happen. I'm so happy to have supporters like you, my followers, my friends, my investors. Thank you for helping me make my dreams of spreading Paul's humble message a reality. Thank you. Sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. You are the reason that humanity will prosper. Humanity will come together and solve all of their challenges. Your name will be engraved on an obsidian plaque that they place in the mega capital of the future world. And atop that monument will be Paul, hand carved by the fine artisans of the new future that we carve together. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening to what I have to say. And I know Paul would greatly appreciate it. I know that you all do this for Paul. I do this for Paul too. Thank you. That was all that I had for tonight's agenda. I will continue to update you on the status of the Paul media franchise. Know that Paul 2 is the end of the film franchise, but Paul's message must continue. And I'm completely open to being part of a think tank for Paul's multimedia expansion. Television shows, books, restaurants, video games, and so on. Paul's message may conclude in film format with Paul 2, which would be the 6th Paul movie. But it wouldn't have to be the end of Paul. Paul is so much more. I hope that once this project gets off the ground, I can come back to you to talk about what else we can do with Paul to help his message be heard around the world, to reach new demographics that are still opposed to what Paul has to say. Thank you so much for your time. I will see you on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central or around then. I'm usually late. We will be playing a new game that I found that looks very interesting. We will be putting a pause on Broken Reality to explore this new game. And I think it will be an opportunity that excites. So please tune in this Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central. And if you'd like to see me play Hollow Knight some more, please join me Saturday at 10 a.m., where I will continue to play Hollow Knight, as I will every Saturday following until I beat the game. Thank you so much once again, and I will see you soon. Good night.